You lean across the coffee table, heart pounding, and say again, I love you. The words settle between you, trembling and heavy. And in that moment, you wonder, is this love or is it something else? Because love doesn't demand, it doesn't cling, and it doesn't whisper your worth only when you hear its echo, a phone ping, a text, a nod of approval. Here are 4 kinds of emotional dependency that masquerade as love like wolves, in shepherd's clothing, each one eroding you beneath the counterfeit warmth. 1. Approval addiction. It sounds like, I just want you to like me. But what sits behind it is fear. Fear of being alone, invisible, unloved. When your partner's approval becomes your oxygen, you learn to breathe only when they nod. Your voice for dreams, anger, need quiets. You replay statements before you speak. You mold yourself to fit a mold that never truly fits. What you call love is really a performance. The applause fills the void until pressure to repeat the act suffocates you. 2. Rescue fantasies. You tell yourself, they need me. You feed them advice, encouragement, practicality like water to drought. But beneath the savior complex lies a wound, the craving to feel needed, indispensable, worthy of rescue. You pour from an empty cup, losing your center in their storms. They lean in. You lean out because you're not supporting love. You're supporting survival of the codependent self. 3. Fear of abandonment spirals. Did they respond already? Have they seen me really? What if this ends abruptly, like all the others? Those questions aren't vulnerability, they're ghosts from past wounds, echoing in your chest. They keep you scrolling messages, avoiding silence, staying anxious, and every message, every heartbeat becomes a drug, not love, but dependency. 4. Identity, fusion. When you say, we are one, you feel desirable, but inside, you lose yourself. The small rituals of closeness, shared playlists, shared friends, bleed your edges. Your interests fade. Your choices mold to theirs. You confuse intimacy with invisibility, and when you vanish, it's not love. They don't want you alive, they want you like them. These aren't love. They're emotional mirages, half-truths. They sparkle under candlelight, but burn when you lean in. So what is love, if it isn't this? Asterisk, it begins with freedom, not fear. Asterisk, it asks, who are you? Before assuming, what do you need? Asterisk, it's steady even when you don't post about it. Asterisk, it doesn't demand identity surrender. It mirrors who you are becoming, rather than who you can be for someone else. You can step out of the script of dependency, feel the hunger, the ache for approval, the sting of fear. Name it, I miss me. I'm afraid I'm not enough. Quote, refuse all quick fixes, not approval baiting posts, not validation seeking texts. Rebuild around yourself, your dreams, boundaries, creativity, then test them in relationship. Because love isn't built from halves stitched together, it's forged from 2 whole souls, choosing to join without surrendering. Together, they strengthen. Apart, they stand tall. When they leave, your name remains. When storms come, your voice stays clear. When silence lingers, your presence still breathes. That is love, born from wholeness, not dependency. So walk into your next connection with a heart that knows its worth, not because of someone else's echo, but because you sound like yourself. And that kind of love is unstoppable. And that kind of love, the one born not out of fear, but freedom, is the kind that doesn't tremble when no one's watching. It doesn't need to scream, perform, or chase. It simply is. Because when you break free from emotional dependency, you're no longer just someone's partner. You become your own anchor, your own storm shelter, your own mirror that reflects truth, not fantasy. You stop needing to be needed. You stop confusing attachment for devotion. You stop mistaking desperation for intimacy. And for the first time, you breathe deeply, fully, without apology. You begin to walk through the world not with hands outstretched in search of someone to complete you, but with your hands steady, open, ready to build with someone who also brings their own wholeness to the table. You recognize that love isn't about losing yourself. It's about discovering how much more powerful you become when you no longer have to beg for connection, when you no longer have to shrink your voice to be heard, when you no longer have to pretend that being chosen is the same thing as being seen. Real love sees you, the real you, the one who isn't afraid to walk alone, the one who doesn't crumble when left unread, the one who can say, "This is me," and mean it. You reclaim that version of yourself the moment you choose truth over illusion. You silence the noise, you stop explaining your worth, and in that silence, something sacred rises. You, unapologetics, unmasked, undeniable. You are not here to be an echo of someone else's wounds. You are not here to play therapist to people who won't heal. You are not here to pour yourself into cups that never had the capacity to hold you. You are here to burn brightly in your own name. You are here to be loved in your clarity, not your compromise. You are here to walk away from anything and anyone that demands you be less in order to be kept. Because you were never meant to be someone's emotional crutch. You were meant to stand tall and walk forward as the kind of person who chooses love not out of desperation, but out of dignity. This is not the ending of the story, it is the ignition. Let go of the mirage. Let go of the ache to be chosen. Let go of love that only sees your usefulness. And in the ruins of every lie you ever called love, build the truth. And let that truth set fire to everything false you ever believed about what you deserved. Because this isn't just about who loves you. This is about how deeply you love yourself enough to stop settling. And that is the beginning of everything. You see, most people never leave the prison, not because they can't, but because they've grown comfortable decorating the cell. They call the chains loyalty. They call the silence peace. They call the absence of chaos love. But absence of pain is not presence of love. There's a difference between feeling safe and being seen. And if you're still molding yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone, if you're still suppressing your voice so someone else doesn't feel threatened, that's not love. That's survival dressed up in emotional lingerie. You were not born to walk on eggshells in a room you built. You were not made to earn love by erasing yourself piece by piece. You were not designed to mistake tension for passion or guilt for guidance. Because here's the truth they never taught you. The greatest form of love is not staying. It's leaving when staying costs you your soul. It's walking away not because you don't care, but because you finally do for yourself. And that shift, it's brutal, but it's also holy. It's when you stop begging for a seat at tables where your authenticity is too loud. It's when you realize your softness is not a flaw. It's when you stop giving CPR to relationships that were dead long before you arrived. You become the storm and the shelter. You stop choosing people who treat your nervous system like a battlefield. You learn that peace is not boring, it's sacred. You learn that being alone isn't loneliness, it's liberation. And the moment you stop mistaking emotional dependency for love is the moment you stop confusing crumbs for a feast. So burn the script they handed you, the one that said you had to earn love, the one that said being needed was the same as being wanted, the one that told you to abandon yourself just to avoid being abandoned. Set it all on fire, because love doesn't require your self-destruction. Love, real love, invites your full becoming. And when you finally choose that, you'll never go hungry again. And when you finally choose that, you don't just stop hurting, you start healing. You don't just stop chasing, you start creating. Because true love doesn't whisper in riddles. It roars in truth. It doesn't shrink when you expand, it stretches with you, grows with you, honors the ground you walk on because it knows how long you crawled just to stand upright in your own skin. And you begin to recognize the difference between being consumed and being cherished, between being tolerated and being treasured. between staying because you're afraid and staying because you're free. You learn that the highest form of love is not possession. It is presence. The presence of someone who can sit in your shadow without trying to fix it, who can hear your silence and not flinch, who can hold space for your wildness without caging it. But before anyone else can do that, you must. You must become that sanctuary for yourself. You must become the one who doesn't flinch at your own darkness, who doesn't edit your truth, who doesn't delay your joy waiting for someone else to approve of it. You must become the place you always search for. Because when you finally see the truth, that love is not something you beg for, but something you embody, you'll never again settle for less. Not in relationships, not in your calling, not in the way you speak to yourself when no one's listening. You'll walk differently, speak differently, choose differently, because you'll know you were never too much. You were just offering your heart to people who couldn't hold it. But now you hold it firmly, fiercely, fully. And that, my friend, is the moment you stop mistaking emotional dependency for love and start living as love itself. Because the moment you become love itself, you no longer search for it like a beggar roaming the ruins of someone else's broken soul. You become the cathedral, unshakable, built brick by brick from the truth of your scars, your solitude, your surrender. No longer asking, will they choose me? Instead demanding, is this worthy of me? Because when you have suffered enough, when you have mistaken chains for warmth and silence for peace, you begin to realize love is not pain disguised as passion. It is not sacrifice without balance. It is not the endless compromise of your essence just to earn crumbs of attention. Love, real love, does not cost your identity. It requires it. It wants you whole. It wants you honest. It wants you unmasked and unraveled and untamed, not diluted to fit someone else's fear. And when you realize this, a new standard emerges inside you like a storm breaking over a long drought land. You stop asking to be seen. You see yourself. You stop pleading to be heard. You listen to yourself. You stop trying to be enough because you know deep in your marrow you are. And from that place, every relationship changes. Every decision sharpens. Every addiction to approval disintegrates. Because when you no longer confuse love with dependency, your soul stands up straighter. It speaks clearer. It finally breathes. And that breath, that's your real beginning. Because that breath, that first true inhale after a lifetime of suffocating in someone else's version of love that is your rebirth. It is the moment your spirit stops whispering for permission and starts roaring with presence, no longer apologizing for your depth, no longer explaining your wounds, no longer shrinking in the presence of shallow love just to keep someone else comfortable. Because here's the truth no one tells you. The greatest heartbreak isn't losing another person, it's losing yourself in the process of trying to keep them. And the most sacred act of healing isn't learning how to love again. It's remembering that you were never unlovable to begin with. They just couldn't see you because they hadn't yet seen themselves. So don't wait for someone to understand your worth before you believe in it. Don't wait for someone to stay before you choose to stand. And don't wait for love to arrive wrapped in perfection when the purest love has always been wrapped in courage. The courage to sit alone in your authenticity, to feel the ache without numbing it, to say no to almost love so you can say yes to your full truth. This is not weakness, this is not bitterness, this is not loneliness. This is liberation. It is the sacred separation from all the lies you once called love. And from that place of clarity, that place of fire-forged truth, you will build again. Not from desperation, not from emptiness, but from the overflowing power of a soul that has remembered it is already home. Because once your soul remembers it is already home, you stop searching for shelter in places that set you on fire just to keep you warm. You stop knocking on doors that were never meant to open. You stop bending your light to fit into shadows. You start choosing stillness over chaos, peace over performance, truth over temporary comfort, You begin walking through life with a new posture, not one of arrogance, but of quiet certainty. The kind that doesn't demand to be chosen because it knows it is already enough. You become dangerous, not because you intend to harm, but because you can no longer be manipulated by false affection, conditional care, or the empty echoes of I love you without alignment. You've burned through the illusions. You've seen what love is not. And now you're ready to live what love is. A mirror that doesn't distort your reflection. A fire that warms but never consumes. A hand that holds without possessing. A path that doesn't require your silence to be walked together. This is what real connection feels like. It nourishes instead of depletes. It liberates instead of confines. And it amplifies your truth instead of muting it. So if you've ever loved someone so much you lost yourself, forgive yourself. If you stayed too long, hoping they would see your worth, release the shame. That version of you wasn't weak. They were just still learning. And now you've learned. Now you rise, not to prove, not to punish, but to protect the most sacred thing you own, your unapologetic, uncompromised, unshakable self. Because the version of you that loved with no boundaries wasn't broken. It was beautifully unfinished. You weren't foolish for believing in love. You were brave enough to feel deeply in a world that teaches you to numb, to perform, to protect yourself behind personas that don't bleed. But now your wisdom has teeth. Now your heart doesn't just open, it discerns. It doesn't just give, it remembers. Because not every hand that reaches for you deserves what you carry. And not every I miss you is a prayer. Some are just echoes of someone missing their control over you. So let this be your reckoning moment, where the old identity, the overgiver, the appeaser, the one who smiled through wounds and called it love, finally dissolves. Let it burn. Let the ashes whisper, I am not who I was, and I will never abandon myself again. You are no longer defined by how others fail to hold you. You are defined by how you choose to hold yourself, especially when no one is watching. And that is where power lives, not in noise, not in validation, not in proving, but in the fierce, silent knowing, I belong to me now. This is not just healing, this is rebirth. This is the moment your past stops writing your story and your soul picks up the pen. So from this moment forward, walk like someone who has nothing left to lose, but everything yet to become. Because the person you've been trying to be for the world is exhausted. But the person buried beneath all the masks, the one who loves without fear, who speaks without apology, who stands without bending, that person is starving to live. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe your past another moment of loyalty. You don't owe the memory of who they wanted you to be another breath of your present becoming. You owe you now. You owe your younger self the life they dreamed of in secret. You owe your future self the strength to build what no one thought you could. And you owe your true self, the one that survived every heartbreak, every abandonment, every voice that tried to shrink you, a return to truth. The kind of truth that doesn't scream, it resonates. The kind of presence that doesn't beg, it commands. Because when you finally stop asking for permission to be real, when you stop performing for love that isn't love, when you stop trying to fit in places that only love the idea of you, you don't become alone, you become free. And freedom is the first language of the soul. And freedom doesn't roar, it remembers. It remembers what it was like before the world told you to shrink, before be good became code for be quiet. Kai, before you mistook approval for affection and applause for identity. It remembers that the truest parts of you were never too much. They were just too pure for people who forgot how to feel. And now you don't have to chase them. Not their love, not their praise, not their crumbs of attention. Because when you return to your real self, you realize you are not missing anything. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply becoming the version of you that no longer abandons yourself just to be chosen. The version that chooses you over and over again, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely, even when the world doesn't understand. That's the version who changes everything, not with noise, but with presence, not with proof, but with peace, not by being liked, but by being undeniably real. That is your new power. And this time, no one gets to take it from you. And now, at the edge of everything you've ever known, you stand. Not broken, not lost, but lit, a living torch of clarity, courage, and undimmed truth. Every fear you silenced, every wound you ignored, every version of yourself you buried, they were all invitations to remember you were never meant to shrink. That survival was never your destiny. That you whole, wild, unfiltered was always enough. So breathe deeply. Feel the weight of your own presence. Know that every trembling step toward your own light will shake the foundations of old illusions. Walk into the world like a soul reborn, not to prove you're worthy, but because you already are. And when the world tries to tame you with its expectations, its whispers, its shadows, show them who you really are, not with noise, not with struggle, but with the fierce, quiet power of someone who has come home. You, undeniable, unbreakable, unapologetically whole, this is your becoming. And the world has been waiting its whole life for you to arrive. And if one day you forget, if the noise out there grows loud again, if the old masks start whispering your name, if the expectations of others begin to wrap themselves around your soul like chains, Pause, not to run, not to fight, but to remember that you were never born to please, never designed to fit their mold, never meant to be a safe version of yourself that others could easily swallow. You are here to become fully, fiercely, truthfully, not the persona they trained you to perform, not the copy they applauded, but the original soul that never needed fixing in the first place. You have stared into the abyss of self-forgetting, and you did not flinch. You walked through the fire of falsehood and emerged not just with your heart intact, but with a consciousness awake. So let them watch. Let them misunderstand you. Let them cling to their old scripts while you rewrite life with every breath of authenticity. Because when you stop betraying your soul, you start living as something the world rarely dares to witness. A real human being needing no validation, hiding nothing, and holding everything to give. You are no longer the supporting role. You are the author of the story, and this journey has only just begun.